may have. And there may be many because there's a lot going on in this program, but yeah, we'll just take you through kind of the basics and go from there. But so yeah, just to go through, and everyone can see this, right? Awesome. Just to go through a quick agenda, we're going to just go through the program basics, kind of the premise, how it works. We'll go into different credits that you may be eligible for as local government and how they are generated. And then we'll get a little bit into how credits actually become monetized, become dollars. And we have a tool that we can show you and that we will also share with you, should be on our website soon, for estimating credits and revenue that could come from electric vehicle charging equipment. We're going to get into aggregators a little bit and their role in the program and how they kind of relate to you. And there are a few other opportunities besides credit generation that we have that you may want to take advantage of as local government. So what is the Clean Transportation Fuel Program? In essence, it is establishing a statewide carbon intensity standard for transportation fuel, which decreases annually. It's a value, carbon intensity, and it goes down year by year. And so it creates a market where companies with fuel that exceeds the carbon intensity standard have to acquire credits to be in compliance with the program. And those that generate low carbon fuels, for example, electricity as a transportation fuel, can sell those credits to people that need them. And we facilitate that. So you can kind of see on this graph, the dotted line where the carbon intensity goes down year after year. And we have fuels, transportation fuels below the standard that will likely be credit generating, and then above the standard, which are typically fossil-based fuels that kind of land above the standard and will generate deficits that they have to offset with those credits. And we do have these targets for 2030 and 2040, and they are in the form of emissions reduction. So our goal is 20% below 2018 levels by 2030, and then 30% below by 2040. And yes, we will be sharing slides after the meeting. We'll talk about that a little bit later so we can get everyone's contact info. Okay, so moving right along, this also might help illustrate it a little bit to kind of facilitate the transition into cleaner transportation fuel and lower emissions as a state. We have cleaner fuels balancing out traditional fuel on kind of this gradually decreasing level. But these are just some of the examples of fuel that might generate credits. So we're talking electricity, and that's what mostly we'll be talking about today, although there are a few other things. There's alternative jet fuel, synthetic fuel, fuel supply equipment and projects, right? It's not just the pure electricity. It can be planned projects for transportation electrification, renewable diesel. And then the ones that are going to be generating the deficits typically, what is renewable diesel? Someone else want to grab that one? I'm not sure of the scientific details.
Sure, I'll hop in here. So renewable diesel is a drop-in diesel substitute that's manufactured using plant biomass. So it's identical enough to diesel that it can be put in diesel engine vehicles, but it's not from a fossil source.
So thank you for that question. So typically where you all come in, the people that have to register for this program are typically going to be the fossil-based fuel groups, anyone who imports, distributes, or produces fuels that fall under our list of regulated fuel. For the most part, we hope you all would be credit generating, and that is an option. It's not mandatory under the Clean transportation fuel program, you may opt in at any time. So this is a choice you can make if you like. So just a little bit about our timeline. We were kind of in rulemaking for a while, hashing out the details of this specific rule. It was adopted in January of this year. It became effective April 1st. And those parties that had to register, that are regulated under our program in a mandatory way, had to register by May 15th. And the way that the program works is by quarters. So each quarter of the program, based on the different transactions and data that's entered onto our online portal, there are reports generated. And that's kind of how the credits and deficits are determined and how folks can figure out what credits they need and who to sell to, et cetera. The first compliance period of the program ends in December 31st of 2027. So it's kind of a long first period as we get this up and running. And later on, hopefully our emissions targets will be met. You can kind of think of this as a nice sort of cycle. So if you expand the use of cleaner fuels in New Mexico and you help us to lower emissions, you can then earn these credits that are monetizable. And you do that by registering with us, reporting the activity that generates the credits. Then you get to sell the credits to producers of carbon intensive fuels. And that in turn can create revenue streams that can, in some ways, be used in any way that you like, and they could also be reinvested into lower emission transportation options, and then the cycle may continue. So here's kind of the core of where you all come in. These are different types of opportunities for credits for local government, and there are a few different types, and we'll go through them more in depth, but for the most part, when we're talking about credits that you may be able to generate, we're first talking about fuel supply equipment. So if you as an agency own electric vehicle chargers, ports, pumps, any kind of infrastructure that dispenses electricity as a transportation fuel, then we have government as an electric distribution utility. So a utility that dispenses electricity that some part of it ends up being used for transportation. So I think I think we have Los Alamos here as an example of that. I think Gallup as well. And yeah, so that is where you may be wearing that utility hat and be able to generate credits as well. And those are calculated in a slightly different way, but we'll talk about it. You may also run a transit agency. So example would be electric buses or rail. Those are also eligible to generate credits. And then we have this other category that has to do with owning certain electric heavy equipment. And the way that credits work under the program is there's kind of a chain of who is first to be able to claim the credits for this thing that is lowering emissions from transportation. And it kind of goes down the line. So for these first three that I've talked about, you as the owner of the equipment would be first in line. As the agency that runs the utility, you'd be first in line. As the transit agency, same thing first. As a fleet owner, where the charging infrastructure may be owned by someone else, you're actually second in line. But we'll get a little bit more into that later. But that is a benefit that we have for this certain heavy equipment, that you may be entitled to some credits if someone else does not claim them. Generally, we are talking about electricity as a transportation fuel here, but there may be credits generated from compressed natural gas, propane, other fuels. And again, you may be in more than one of these roles, and there is a little bit of overlap here. So let's keep going. So we're going to just take a little bit of a deeper dive into these types of credits. So fuel supply equipment credits, we call them FSC credits. Just bringing it back to the main point, we want to incentivize dispensing of clean transportation fuel. So if your agency owns charging equipment for electric vehicles, fleet vehicles, compressed natural gas fueling equipment, you're first in line to claim credits on that if you register with CTFP. Now here, I just want to mention that this also encompasses things like e-bike or e-scooter charging infrastructure. They're kind of treated like electric vehicles for the purposes of this category. And the credit source here, where the credits are, how they're calculated is the actual electricity dispensed by these various ports. There's also a distinction to be made. There's another type of fuel supply equipment credits. There's two main kinds. One is the one I just talked about. The second is the ability to generate credits for planned projects, for projects that are planned to install this type of infrastructure. And so just to make that distinction, we don't have to get into every single detail, but there are general rules that we have about these credits, FSC credits for equipment that's already up and running. And then we have what we call capacity credits for planned projects. And that's, again, to incentivize transportation electrification. So now let's come to government as a utility, an electric distribution utility. We call these EDUs under the program. And why, again, we'd like to reduce emissions. Some of the electricity that's dispensed will go toward fueling electric vehicles. And you will be eligible if you operate the EDU and it dispenses a portion of residential electricity for charging EVs. So in this case, it's obviously a little bit difficult to estimate, what the total quantity of residential electricity that's being used for EVs. So we take on some of this and will actually kind of automatically deposit these types of credits once you register for the portion of non-metered residential electricity. So electricity dispensed residentially for charging electric vehicles. So that's kind of based on different regional data, EV registrations, and carbon intensities for the region. So in this case, if you operate a utility, you'd be first in line to claim those credits. You kind of share that place too with electric vehicle manufacturers. So they may claim up to 35% of the available credits here, and you would be entitled to the rest. And this is a little bit confusing, but we are developing some more materials that we'll share with you. Can you explain why EV manufacturers can claim credits? Maybe Angela would be good for this question.
So the how and why is that we put this into the rule. So they get up to 35% of the credits for vehicles that they produced. They do have to provide telematics charging data. So they get the credits essentially because they're providing more specific data about the amount of charging that's occurring in a residential setting.
Thanks, Angela. Okay, so moving right along. So again, as a government, you may operate a transit agency, and this is kind of another special category within the rule. Again, we want to incentivize cleaner public transportation and public transportation in general to reduce emissions. You may operate an electric bus system, light rail, streetcars, aerial trams, and again, are first in line to claim those credits. And this is based off of not just necessarily what, if you own the charging infrastructure and what electricity is dispensed, but in some cases, you would have to report the electricity that's used by those transit systems. And that is how the credits would be calculated. Another few things to note about transit credits, public transit credits under the rule. You kind of get an advantage if you are claiming credits with public transit. In our calculations of credits, you get a little bit of a boost for systems, and it is very specific based on what type of transit system you have, because it's more efficient at moving more passengers. And the other thing to note is there is another process that we have in place to encourage transit agencies to put in place projects that increase use, increase ridership. And that will be starting, we think, around July. And this will be kind of more of a case-by-case basis situation, but know that that option is going to be available to you. Okay, now we kind of come to this special equipment credits as a fleet owner. So we want to incentivize, again, the use of cleaner fuels in special equipment. And this is kind of a specific situation. Maybe fewer of you this will apply to, but you may operate a fleet with certain electric special equipment. So we're talking about electric forklifts, electric transport refrigeration units, and electric ground support equipment. But you may not own the charging infrastructure. So in that case, the person who's kind of first in line is the person that owns the charging infrastructure. And that's pretty true across the rule in general. That's how it would work for that fuel supply equipment, the first group we talked about. If you own the charging equipment, in this case, they would be first, but you would be second. And this is something that is not necessarily the case for light, medium, heavy duty vehicles, but it is for this special equipment. And again, credits are calculated based on the actual electricity dispensed in kilowatt hours. Okay, so we wanted to share with you a tool that we have for you to basically get a rough idea of what the revenue would be, what the return would be on registering for our program. And I'll drag it over. Can you all see this?
No.
No. Okay, let me try again. Okay. Now we have it. Okay, so and this we will share with you. It's going to be on our website, if not today, hopefully tomorrow. But if for whatever reason there's a delay, we'll try to get it to you another way. But we just kind of wanted to take you through a scenario that may be typical to show you how this calculator works. So over here, we do have some instructions. We have the calculator itself, and then these tabs are pretty much reference tables that the calculator is pulling from, but that you can also look at if you're curious about where some of this is coming from. And this is very detailed. You know, you may not have to get into every single category, but it allows you to select for different situations in this column right here in the brown. And if one of these turns orange, then you also enter information there. So just as an example here, we have, you choose the charger type, level 2 charger. Okay. Vehicle class. Let's say it's going to be light, medium duty. Here is where you get to enter the number of chargers. Maybe it's 10, and we see the numbers shift. Maybe it's 15. We have the capacity per charger, and there are some options here, but you can also enter a manual value. That's in kilowatts. Then we have the average daily use. So this is going to be how long is that charger actually being used in hours per day per charger. So we chose manual, and we're going to say 5 or maybe 6, you know, hours per day. Then we have various models for grid carbon intensity of the electricity. So in general, you can kind of stick with statewide grid average here, but there are other options if you can really get in the weeds and want to check it out. Revenue year, you can choose just 1 year, like let's say for 2028, or all years. And the reason that values change over time is because of what we have, and we had many projections during our hearings for the Environmental Improvement Board to get the rule passed, projections of how carbon intensity of electricity will change over time, and also how the price of credits will change over time, right? Because we're creating a market, and there's no way to know for sure, but we can make an educated guess about how the price per credit may fluctuate over time based on supply and demand, based on what's already going on in the state. So some of these various projections are also reflected in, the credit price scenario. So we're sticking with this one, and you can read more about them. We have little notes, and we have the tables that this information comes from. But this may be the one to start with for now. We're keeping these the same. So as you can see over time, there can be some significant revenue, and it depends on how many charges you have. It depends on all these factors, but let's see. Someone just asked something. Each credit owner. So, okay, the way that the prices work in the market is that basically a party that needs to buy credits comes to an agreement with a party that is selling credits. And that price that they arrive at is basically between them. We, as a program, will track who has how many credits available, and kind of how the credits are shifting over time. And I don't know if someone else wants to get a little bit more in detail on that, but basically it is like any other marketplace where, you know, there is like an average price, but separate transactions are between individual parties. And we do, under the rule, come out with reports on what the credit market is like, what the average price is, various totals on that. And we will have available a list of our participants in the program. Hopefully that answers that question. But when we're looking at credit price, this is kind of an average. This is a guess of an average. Okay. Now I'm gonna go back, and we will make this calculator available. We can also come back with questions about it, but I'm going to go back to our presentation real quick. Okay. Let's see. Are you all seeing the full screen version yet? Hold on.
Not yet.
I'm sorry. I'm not used to Google. There we go. Okay. All right. So sweet. Okay. So coming back to credits and revenue that may come out of selling them. So in most cases that we think will apply to you, you may own charging equipment, right? So FSC, you're the owner of fuel supply equipment. And you may make revenue from those credits. Now, that can be used in any way that you choose. If you're wearing that EDU hat, that utility hat, and NMED is kind of calculating those credits, we do have a provision that 100% of the revenue must go toward transportation electrification products, and half of that must go toward low income and underserved communities. So we do have specific definitions under the rule of what that means. But that is so the benefits of this program are distributed equitably, and we will have many utilities participating. Let's talk a little bit about aggregators. So this term comes up a bit in our rule, and there are two types of kind of aggregators that we talk about, but they are very, very different. When we're talking about an aggregator of credits, they're both managing credits on behalf of someone else. So someone who owns charging equipment, for example. An aggregator, when we talk about just an aggregator, is typically a service provider, a private business or a consultant that the generator of credits, so maybe you as an agency might choose to hire, and they will handle a lot of the work of tracking, electricity dispensed, signing up on our portal, the administrative work, so that you don't have to. They may take a cut of the credit revenue, but and they also must pay a registration fee. So part of this, it does require, if you register for the program, there is a fee of $3,000. They must also pay that, but they may agree to cover it for you as part of your agreement with them. It's kind of a business negotiation, but that is how that might work for you. And it may be that there's an aggregator that comes in and says, hey, I'll cover this registration fee and yours, and take this amount of the revenue, and you get the rest. And so that's for not doing the administrative work and getting revenue for those credits that you generate, that seems like a good deal in a lot of cases. And then we do have annual fees that are also based off of our annual operating budget. These for credit generators typically are going to be very, very low. It's based on a portion of the total credits generated, but again, these will be likely low if you're generating credits. We also have something called the backstop aggregator, and that is just a single nonprofit organization that is selected by NMED to gather up unclaimed credits. So there may be folks who are who own chargers who don't sign up And that's where a backstop aggregator may step in, gather up those credits and kind of maximize the clean fuel potential that is possible in New Mexico. Their role is going to be to decarbonize the New Mexico transportation sector with the revenue that they generate from those credits. And you, as a government agency, may or may not interact that much with our backstop aggregator, who we are in the process of selecting. But there may be opportunities to partner with them. You know, they may be able to help fund a program that contributes to transportation electrification. They may, you may be able to help them determine where they're going to reinvest this revenue. So that's another thing to be aware of. There are a few other opportunities for government to participate in CTFP if there's no credits being generated, or if you're interested in something additional. So we will be looking for at least one local government representative for our advisory committee as help to provide input on the program. You also have a role in deciding where others are building fuel supply equipment. If it's in your community, you know, you have a say in this, you know, understanding this program and what the stakes are. Definitely, you know, there's an opportunity to get involved at that level, and an opportunity for job creation as some of that unfolds. We also just want to note that CTFP does give an extra incentive for installing fuel supply equipment in what we call low fuel availability areas. These are, will there be only one for the entire CTFP program? The answer is no, but someone else should take that one maybe. I think it's 3 years.
Oh, go ahead, Colt.
Sure. So there is actually only one backstop aggregator for the CTFP, Albert, but there can be many aggregators. They're just called different terms, right? So the backstop aggregator is a nonprofit organization that works on behalf of the department. Aggregators work on behalf of individual parties that participate in the program.
Great. Thank you, Colt. Okay, so what's next? We will make this credit estimator, the revenue calculator, available to you. We also have another tool called a credit deficit estimator, and that's that incorporates a lot more fuel types, not just electricity and EV chargers. If you choose to, and I see the questions, we'll come back to them. If you choose to register with CTFP, you may register at any time. However, CNG, compressed natural gas, I think would have had to register at the May 15th deadline. So we have also, if you do end up registering soon and you would like to claim credits for activity that happened in the first quarter of CTFP, April 1 to June 30th, that data must be reported in our online portal in ARCS by August 15th. So as there is a little bit of time to decide here, and there is even an extra kind of buffer period to finalize any kind of transactions by September 30th. We anticipate that the first credits and deficits will be kind of deposited in individual accounts by late this year. And we will be communicating more about that in the months to come. there are many resources available to learn more. This is a very kind of broad strokes overview, but the first thing might be to actually just locate who the point person might be in your agency who has access to this type of data, fleet data, charging data, carbon intensity, etc., to help make that decision. Do we want to opt in? And again, yeah, play around with that calculator if you like. We have guidance available as well. That's up on our website, guidance to register, guidance for registering fuel supply equipment, because we actually have to keep track of each unit, each piece of equipment. ARCs is where all the magic happens. It's how we keep track of all the fuel transactions, all the data that we use to calculate the credit. So you when you register, you then have the login information for your account as an organization in ARCs. You are then a regulated party under the rule if you do decide to opt in, and you will be tracking, or whoever in your agency or an aggregator would be tracking the electricity dispensed. We also have versions of the full text rule, the regulation, which is very lengthy, but that's definitely the place to go if you want the exact language on all of the things we've gone through. Again, our website has more explanations, more important dates, all the guidance documents that we have so far, and kind of the fee breakdown. We're gonna make an email copy of the presentation available to you as well. And we do have a lot of ways to get in contact with us. So we have a couple emails, general questions about ARCs, which is going to be that platform, that online tool that we have. We have a listserv where we send out announcements if something big is happening in the program, something you need to know about. Go ahead and sign up for that. We also now have available help sessions with our support team. So that's for like one-on-one help navigating this program, which is complicated. But we try to be as accessible as possible to kind of walk everyone through their options here. So we have a booking page for that. And I think that does it for the presentation, but let's see what other questions we have. And thank you, Lauren, for putting links in the chat.
Sophie, can I start with
Sure.
Christian's question? Could you say more about the equity boost for credits from chargers in low-income communities?
Oh, yes. Okay. Anyone else is welcome to take that too, but let me go back to that slide. Okay, so the way that works is by zip code. So if, say, there are plans to build electric fueling infrastructure in a zip code with low fuel availability or low income areas, these are called enhanced lifetime monetary credit limits. That's a mouthful, but basically when we talked about the different types of FSE credits, so we have credits for equipment that's up and running already, and then those kind of capacity FSE credits, which are for the capacity of the infrastructure to dispense transportation fuel. There are limitations on those types of capacity credits. They have a time limit of 10 years, right? If you start generating credits with those. And normally it's either 10 years or hitting a cap of that's determined by the capital expenditure on that project. So normally it would be 1.5 times that amount, but this limit is the cap is raised if it's in these areas, which we do have to define under the rule and will communicate about which zip codes meet the definition for enhanced lifetime monetary credit limits. So I know that's a little confusing, but more info to come there. Okay. Theoretically.
If you'd like, I can continue to read those out.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just looking through to find a new one.
So Richard asked, can you say more about the parties that will pay the fees? Are these dealerships, manufacturers, or fuel distributors?
Yeah, so the parties that will pay the fees is anyone who is, for the most part, anyone who is going ahead and registering for our program. So in a lot of cases, this is mandatory for our regulated parties under the rules. So for anyone who imports, produces, or distributes a transportation fuel in New Mexico that is defined by our rule, and we have a list, but it is typically fossil-based fuels. Those are our regulated parties. They must register, should have by May 15th under the rule, and must pay a registration fee and an annual fee. So those are typically, they could be many different types of businesses, but typically the oil and gas companies who sell the fuel down the chain. If someone is transporting fuel into New Mexico, they're importing it, that person becomes the party responsible for reporting. There's a lot of detail in the rule about who actually is the party that must report. But typically it's going to be anyone that's a little bit upstream in the supply chain. So retailers are not going to be subject to the rule here. Specifically, they're not. So we're not talking gas stations, but we are talking manufacturers, fuel distributors. Hopefully that helps. And then others that have to pay the fees are if you do decide to opt in, if you are not obligated to, like the ones we talked about, but if you say, hey, I think I could generate a lot of credits, I'd like to be part of this program, you go ahead and register. You must also pay a registration fee, although your annual fees will likely be lower. Aggregators will also be paying a fee. The backstop aggregator is exempt from fees. Is it only through one system? There's only one system. It's called ARCS, and I don't know if we already shared a link, Lauren.
It's in there.
Sorry?
Yes, we did share a link.
Oh, yes, I see it right here. Yep, one system for everything. And yeah, I mean, I guess we have a few more minutes. Any other questions? Comments, dreams, hopes?
How many local governments have registered in ARCS so far? I should be able to answer that question. And I don't think, mostly, Christian, we've seen regulated parties because the deadline was April 1st, or excuse me, May 15th for them. I don't think there have been any local governments, and I'll just double check to confirm that.
If there are no more questions, I might pose a question to the group, which is anyone here thinking about opting in? And if so, would you maybe be willing to share a little bit about what your operations contain?
Albert.
Well, this is Chris Payton over at City Transit. I think we've been in the process of registering for the past couple of weeks. You've been helping us out with that. So we operate a CNG facility here for our transit buses, and so that's why we're registering. And we're also in the process of getting RNG and developing that with RIN credits. And so this is another great opportunity for us to generate credits. And then we also have electric charging for buses, as well as 20-foot vans that we have. We have 12 of those and 5 electric buses. So again, appreciate the program and the opportunity for the credits.
Thanks, Chris. That's helpful.
Yeah, I could speak for the city of Albuquerque. We are currently evaluating our participation. We are working on an RFP right now for aggregation services. So we'll be likely to participate on an opt-in basis sometime in the near future after we get that out. And that's mainly for our EV charging stations we have throughout the city, as well as a few that we have for our fleet. And there's a couple other folks from the city on this meeting that I think are also looking into like some of those other credits, possibly like for the electric vehicle equipment we have, as well as people. I think there's Victor's on here from the Sunport that have a number of available options for that. One quick question. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to like the record keeping and kind of what type of data would be needed to be submitted to the system for these credit generating activities.
Yeah, maybe if Angela's still on, that would be great. We're also developing kind of a breakdown of the various steps involved in generating these types of credits that I went over, because they are, the process is a little bit different for each one, and it can be involved. So, but in general, we're going to be talking about kilowatt hours if we're talking about electricity, and registering each FSE unit separately from registering as an organization. So those are kind of the first two processes that would happen, and trying to locate within your organization the data on how much fuel is dispensed for how many hours, et cetera. But maybe someone who is more in ARCs can speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, if we're talking, Albert, if we're talking about fuel supply equipment, it would be details about that type of equipment, and we're still developing that piece of the system, but there'll be options for either manually providing that or uploading, if you have a lot of different units, uploading that information. So yeah, definitely we'll have some guidance on that as we move forward with the reporting process.
All right, just turning back to the chat. Richard asked, is there a minimum size of FSC network to participate?
The answer is no, there is not. We definitely encourage you to mess around with that calculator, or yeah, find out if there are any projects planned, and but no, there is not a minimum. Let's see, any vision of how you would use?
Yeah,
go ahead.
So Rachel is with CNM and just kind of asking about how partners might be impacted by this program. Sounds like they're working with lots of partners to electrify their fleet. We may actually need more information to answer that question, Rachel.
Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that.
I think we had a
Yeah, if
question.
you want to reach out to us, feel free, and we'll see if we can get you some specific answers for your situation.
Yeah, I absolutely will. Thank you so much.
I think if we have another minute, I would love to hear this from Chris and Albert on the vision of how you would use your credit revenue. Question for Christian.
We haven't gotten to that point yet, but envisioning if we're able to funnel that back into some of our sustainability programs, then definitely reinvesting into other green mobility options, like installing more EV charging stations, possibly in disadvantaged communities, and then looking at other alternative options, incentivizing like e-bikes and things like that. I think would be a great thing to do, but we haven't gotten much into that conversation yet.
I wondered if I could ask one more question too of you all. Albert mentioned going out to secure, I believe, I didn't quite hear all of it, the aggregator services, right? And we recognize that that could be a big burden on you all, on all local governments or all eligible governments to actually participate. And so we're thinking about going out through either a statewide pricing agreement or something similar that would qualify any vendors that meet the qualifications we put out there, so that any of you could pick which of the services you want to use, anything from registering, reporting your data, monetizing the credits, selling the credit, that would mean selling the credits, and even potentially reinvesting it in the question that Sophie just asked, which is reinvesting it in a project of your choosing, right? Being a project manager, basically, of that transportation electrification project. So just curious from you all, if it would, and all of that, I mean, the beauty of this whole program is that if structured correctly, you don't have to have any upfront costs, right? You just pick somebody and all these services that they provide could come out of the monetization of your credits. And so I'm just curious, if we did that, would that, is that something that you guys feel like would increase your capability and interest in participating?
Yes.
All right. So we're working on it. It's a process, but we thought it would. I mean, I come from local government too, right? I used to work in Santa Fe County, so I know about the challenges of every step involved. And so we're trying to figure out ways to make it easier.
Yeah, I'll just say that, in us doing this RNG and managing the RIN credits for us, we did put out that to RFP, and we included in that RFP the expectation that we expect that future vendor to manage this New Mexico CFTP program. And so we're putting that on that proposer. We're in the process of awarding that right now, but yeah, we put that on them to manage that for us. So